The sensor array lit up with warnings that made no sense. Deep in the void between star systems, something impossible was happening. Lieutenant Owen Briggs stared at his display screen, watching data scroll past that contradicted 70 years of recorded history that a ship was coming through quantum space. Not the normal kind of jump that every species used. This was different, smoother, quieter. The energy signature belonged to old human technology, the kind they used during the first contact wars before the treaties limited what anyone could build. "Give me Ambassador Worth," Owen said to his communications officer. "And someone wake up High Commander Ralmoth. He needs to see this." The monitoring station orbited a dead moon at the edge of Coalition space. Boring work, mostly. They watched for pirates and illegal mining operations. Once every few months, something interesting happened. This was beyond interesting. This was terrifying. The quantum fold opened like a flower blooming in reverse. Space bent around itself, and a vessel emerged that should not exist. Owen recognized the hull design from history files. Human. Definitely human. The markings were faded, but readable. USS Endeavour. "That ship was destroyed," said his second officer, a Kalari named Vorn who had 3 eyes and skin like purple glass. "Battle of the Contested Reaches. 70 standard years ago. I know what the records say." Owen pulled up the historical database. There it was. The Endeavour, Earth's first deep space warship, lost with all hands while pursuing a Dravine command vessel through unstable space. Declared destroyed. Memorial services held. Names carved into monuments back on Earth. Except the ship hanging in space 300,000 kilometers away was very real. "Scan it," Owen ordered. The technician tried. Her console sparked and went dark. "Sir, the ship has some kind of defensive field. I can't get readings through it." Every scanning array on the station went offline at once. Emergency lights flickered on. Owen felt his stomach drop. Whatever technology that ship carried, it was far beyond anything the Coalition had access to. His communications panel chirped. Ambassador Talia Worth appeared on screen, looking like she had just woken up. Her gray hair stuck out at odd angles. "This better be important, Lieutenant. The Endeavour just came back from the dead, ma'am." Talia's expression went from annoyed to deadly serious in half a second. "Show me." Owen transferred the visual feed. They both watched the ship hang there in the darkness, its hull covered in modifications that did not look human. Strange panels covered sections of the armor. The engine configuration was wrong. The whole ship had been rebuilt using principles that did not match any known technology. "Give me a channel to Earth," Talia said, "and prepare a diplomatic packet for the Dravine Empire. They're going to want to know about this." "Already done, ma'am." The Dravine picked up the signature 30 seconds after we did. "Their nearest battle group is changing course. They'll be here in 6 hours." Talia swore quietly. "Of course they are. What about the ship? Have they tried to communicate?" As if in answer, every screen on the station switched to the same image. A transmission was coming through on old human frequencies, the kind nobody used anymore. The picture showed a man in a captain's uniform that looked 70 years out of date. He appeared to be in his early 40s, clean-shaven, with tired eyes and a slight smile. "This is Captain Ryan Tucker of the USS Endeavour, transmitting to any Coalition or Earth forces in range. We're home. Mission accomplished. Requesting coordinates for nearest friendly port and updated star charts. Our navigation data seems to be outdated." Owen and Talia looked at each other. Captain Ryan Tucker had been 42 when the Endeavour disappeared. He should be over 100 years old now, if he had somehow survived. The man on screen had not aged a day. "Send a response," Talia said. "Tell them to hold position and prepare to receive a diplomatic envoy. And make it clear they should not activate any weapons systems." High Commander Ralmoth burst into the command center. The Dravine was 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. His species had been at war with humanity 70 years ago. The conflict ended in a brutal stalemate that birthed the Coalition, an uneasy peace between dozens of species who all agreed that another war would destroy everyone. "That ship should not exist," Ralmoth growled. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. I was there at the Battle of the Contested Reaches. We watched it fall into the collapsing wormhole. Nothing could survive that. Apparently something did, Owen said. Sir, their crew complement shows 847 humans still alive. Life signs are strong. Whatever happened to them, they're healthy. Ralmotha's 4 eyes narrowed. Impossible. Are they clones? Some kind of trick? Before anyone could answer, the Endeavor's defensive field pulsed. Every ship within 10 light seconds lost power to their scanning systems. Even the station's main sensors went offline. Emergency backups kicked in, but the damage was done. Whatever technology that ship had, it could disable Coalition military hardware without even trying. Ambassador Worth, came Captain Tucker's voice again. We're detecting multiple vessels approaching our position. Please advise if this is standard protocol or if we should consider them hostile. We'd prefer not to engage unless necessary, but our defensive systems are reading elevated threat levels. Talia leaned close to the microphone. Captain Tucker, this is Ambassador Talia Worth of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. You've been gone for 70 years. The war ended decades ago. We're all part of Coalition now. Those ships approaching are both friendly and potentially hostile. It's complicated. Please, keep your weapons offline and let us handle this. Silence stretched for 5 long seconds. 70 years. Tucker's voice carried disbelief. Ambassador, we've been gone for 6 months. Subjective time. What are you talking about? Owen felt ice run down his spine. 6 months for them. 70 years for everyone else. Whatever happened to the Endeavor in that wormhole, it had done something to time itself. And a ship they brought back could shut down Coalition sensors like they were children's toys. This was going to change everything. Dr. Petra Lang had seen plenty of strange things in her career as a xenotechnology specialist. She had studied Kalari crystal processors that thought faster than quantum computers. She had examined Dravine plasma weapons that could burn through 6 meters of solid titanium. Nothing prepared her for what waited inside the Endeavor. The docking procedure took 4 hours. Captain Tucker insisted on specific protocols, checking and rechecking safety measures. When the airlock finally opened, Petra stepped through with her research team and felt her breath catch. The corridor did not look human anymore. The walls hummed with energy that made her skin tingle. Panels of dark material covered every surface, shot through with veins of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air smelled strange, like ozone mixed with something sweet and metallic. "Welcome aboard," said a woman in an engineering uniform. Her name tag read Chief Beth Cortez. She looked young, maybe 30, with oil stains on her hands and an easy smile. "Sorry about the mess. We've been doing a lot of modifications." Modifications, Petra repeated, running a scanner over the nearest wall. The readings made no sense. The material was not metal, not ceramic, not any polymer in her database. It existed in a quantum state, somehow solid and energy at the same time. "Chief Cortez, what is this?" "We call it adaptive matter. The archive taught us how to synthesize it. Changes properties based on what you need. Right now it's functioning as hull plating, but I could reconfigure it to be a computer processor or a power conduit in about 30 seconds. Petra's team exchanged worried glances. "The archive?" Beth's smile faded slightly. "Yeah, that's complicated. Captain Tucker is waiting for you in what used to be the conference room. He'll explain everything." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they passed. Doors opened without being touched. Lights adjusted their brightness based on who was walking by. The ship felt alive in a way that was deeply unsettling. Captain Ryan Tucker sat at a table that looked grown rather than built. He had dark circles under his eyes and the weathered look of someone who had seen too much. Next to him sat a young woman in a tactical officer's uniform, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, who watched the visitors with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Dr. Lang," Tucker said, standing to shake her hand. His grip was strong but not aggressive. "Thank you for coming aboard. I understand this is all very confusing. It's confusing for us too, honestly. We thought we'd been gone for 6 months. Ambassador Worth tells us it's been 70 years. Time dilation from the wormhole collapse," Petra suggested, sitting down across from him. "Though the math doesn't add up. 6 months to 70 years is an impossible ratio unless you were near a black hole's event horizon. And even then, we weren't near a black hole, Yuki said quietly. We were somewhere else. Somewhere the rules are different. Tucker nodded slowly. When we pursued that Dravine command ship through the wormhole, we expected to die. The passage was collapsing. But instead of being crushed, we came out in a region of space that our computers couldn't map. Stars and configurations that didn't match any catalog. Gravity behaving wrong. We called it the Crucible. Petra listened as Tucker described 6 months of desperate survival. The Endeavor had been damaged in the transition. Life support failing. Navigation offline. They had drifted until they found a structure, massive and ancient, orbiting a dying star. The architects built it, Tucker continued. We don't know who they were. Maybe they're still around somewhere. Maybe they went extinct a billion years ago. But they left behind technology and something else. An intelligence. The archive, like an artificial intelligence. Petra asked, more than that. It's a repository of knowledge, but it's also alive in a way I can't explain. It tested us, gave us challenges. Some were technical, figuring out how to repair our ship using their technology. Others were ethical. Moral choices. How we treated damaged systems that might have been conscious. How we responded when we found other species' failed attempts to master the archive. Beth leaned forward. We didn't have a choice. It was integrate with the archive or die. Our reactor was failing. We had maybe 2 weeks before life support went completely offline. The archive offer bargain. It would help us survive and get home, but only if we proved we were worthy. Worthy how? Petra felt her scientific training warring with a growing sense of dread. Yuki pulled up a holographic display. It showed the Endeavor crew working alongside strange machines, repairing systems, solving puzzles. But also showed something else. Crew members with their hands on crystalline interfaces, their eyes glowing with the same light that pulsed through the ship's walls. We bonded with it, Yuki said. All 847 of us. The archive downloaded information directly into our minds. We can access its database, understand technologies that would take your scientists centuries to figure out. But it's not a one-way street. The archive learned from us too. It wanted to understand humanity. Petra's skin chimed. She looked down at the readout and felt her stomach drop. Chief Cortez, you have cybernetic implants. Neural interfaces. They're throughout your entire crew. Not cybernetic, Beth corrected gently. Organic tech. The archive doesn't use metal and circuits. It uses biological computing, quantum entanglement, things that blur the line between machine and living tissue. Every person on this ship carries a piece of the archive inside them. We're not separate from it anymore. We're partners. Tucker stood and walked to the window. Outside, coalition ships were gathering. Dozens of them now. Human destroyers. Dravine battlecruisers. Kalari science vessels. All of them watching, waiting, trying to understand what the Endeavor had become. We came home because we completed our mission, Tucker said softly. We stopped that Dravine command ship from escaping. Found its wreckage in the Crucible. But we're bringing back something more important than a military victory. The archive showed us things. How your coalition is built on fear. How everyone agreed to limit technology because you're all terrified of another war. How that fear is holding the entire galaxy back. He turned to face Petra. The archive has activated other sites. 3 of them scattered across coalition space. They're waking up because the galaxy has reached a tipping point. Species either evolve together or destroy each other. The archive has been watching for millions of years, waiting for the right moment to intervene. That moment is now. Petra felt the weight of those words settle over her. What happens next? Tucker's expression was grim. The archive is going to test everyone. Every species in the coalition. And not everyone is going to pass. High Commander Ralmoth had fought in 17 major battles during the Human War. He had watched ships burn and planets fall. None of that compared to the fear he felt watching the archive sites activate across the galaxy. The first one appeared in Kalari space, near their capital world. A massive structure materialized out of quantum foam, as if it had been waiting there all along, just hidden. It was beautiful and terrifying, made of the same adaptive matter that covered the Endeavor, pulsing with patterns of light that seemed to write themselves across its surface. The second site emerged in neutral territory, in a system that 3 different species claimed as their ancestral homeland. Wars have been fought over that system. Now, something ancient sat there, making all those territorial disputes seem small and petty. The third appeared in Dravine space. Ralmoth's own people found it orbiting a gas giant, its presence triggering every alarm and defense system within range. And just like the others, it broadcast a simple message in every known language. Harvest Protocol initiated. All species will be evaluated. Worthiness determines advancement. Resistance is not recommended. Coalition emergency session convened within hours. 300 species representatives filled the Grand Hall, all of them talking at once. Ralmoth stood among his delegation, watching the chaos unfold. The Dravine Empire wanted immediate military action. Destroy the structures before they could do whatever they were planning. Others argued for diplomatic contact. Some species wanted to run, abandon coalition space entirely. Ambassador Talia Worth stood at the podium, trying to restore order. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we make any decisions. Captain Tucker and his crew have agreed to share what they know about the archive. I suggest we listen. Why should we trust humans? Demanded a Kalari senator, her crystal body reflecting angry red light. They bring this disaster to our doorstep and expect us to follow their lead. We didn't bring anything, Tucker said, entering the chamber with Lieutenant Yuki and Chief Beth. The archive was already here. It's been here for millions of years, watching, waiting. We just happened to be the ones who found it first. Ralmoth studied the human captain. There was something different about Tucker now. The way he moved, the way he spoke. He had the confidence of someone who had seen beyond the edge of known space and come back changed. The other crew members showed similar traits. They stood straighter. Their eyes held knowledge that made Ralmoth uncomfortable. Explain the Harvest Protocol, Ralmoth said, cutting through the noise. What does the archive want from us? Tucker activated a holographic display. It showed species from across galactic history. Some Ralmoth recognized from ancient records. Others were completely unknown. The architects, whoever they were, created the archive as a safeguard. They watched younger civilizations destroy themselves over and over. Wars, resource depletion, technological disasters. Same patterns repeating across millions of years. So they built the archive to intervene. Intervene how? Asked Professor Isaac Grant, Earth's top quantum physicist. He had joined the delegation specifically to study the Endeavor's technology. By testing, Yuki said. The archive doesn't force anyone to do anything. It presents challenges. Moral dilemmas. Technical problems. How a species responds determines what level of technology they can handle. Pass the tests, gain access to archive knowledge. Fail, and you stay where you are. Beth brought up images from the Endeavor's time in the Crucible. We faced tests designed specifically for humans. Situations where we could save ourselves by sacrificing others. Where we could take shortcuts that would give us power but hurt innocent bystanders. The archive watched how we chose. And you passed because you're so noble. The Kalari senator's sarcasm cut through the room. We passed because we got lucky, Tucker said honestly. We made the right choices, but it wasn't easy. Some of my crew wanted to abandon damaged archive constructs and focus on getting home. Others argued we should help repair them first, even if it delayed our departure. We voted, helping won by 3 votes. 3 votes out of 847. If the vote had gone the other way, the archive would have rejected us. Silence fell over the chamber. The implications were staggering. So now everyone faces the same tests, Ralmoth said slowly. Every species in the coalition. And those who fail get left behind. Not left behind, Tucker corrected, given a roadmap for growth. The archive doesn't punish failure. It teaches. But yes, species that fail won't get access to advanced technology. They'll stay at their current level until they're ready to try again. The Dravine military advisor leaned close to Ralmoth. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow some alien machine to judge us. Our sovereignty is at stake. Ralmoth understood the concern. The Dravine Empire was built on strength and conquest. For generations, they had been the dominant military power in their region of space. Only the formation of the coalition and the technology limitation treaties had brought them to the negotiating table. If the archive tested them using human moral standards, they would fail. Their entire culture would be deemed unworthy. What happens if we refuse the tests? Ralmoth asked. Tucker's expression grew somber. The archive showed us historical records. Species that refused evaluation got quarantined. Not destroyed, just isolated. Their technology stopped working whenever they tried to leave their home systems. The archive contains blueprints for every major civilization's core tech. It can disable things remotely if it determines a species is too dangerous. That's tyranny, someone shouted from the Kalari section. That's survival, Beth shot back. The architects watched the galaxy burn 17 times over. 17 complete cycles where advanced civilizations wiped each other out. They built the archive to stop the 18th cycle from happening. You can call it tyranny if you want, but the alternative is extinction. Professor Grant raised his hand. Captain Tucker, you mentioned the archive learned from humans. What did it learn? Tucker smiled slightly. That compassion isn't weakness. That cooperation beats competition in the long run. That the strongest civilizations are the ones that lift others up instead of pushing them down. Humans aren't special. We're not chosen or superior. But we showed the archive something it hadn't seen in a long time. We chose to help when we could have chosen to harm. That's all it took. Ralmoth felt something shift inside his chest. His people had built an empire on the opposite philosophy. Strength through domination. Victory through overwhelming force. If the archive tested them using these standards, the Dravine would fail spectacularly. The chamber erupted in arguments again. Some species wanted to accept the tests. Others demanded military action. A few suggested trying to negotiate with the archive itself. Through it all, Ralmoth watched Captain Tucker and his crew. They stood calm and patient, not forcing anyone to accept their word, just offering information and letting others decide. For the first time in his long military career, Ralmoth wondered if his people had been wrong about everything. Lieutenant Owen Briggs had volunteered for evaluation without thinking it through. Now, standing in front of the archive site in neutral space, he was seriously reconsidering his life choices. The structure was even more impressive up close. It stretched for hundreds of kilometers, its surface constantly shifting and reorganizing. Patterns of light moved across it like thoughts flowing through a massive brain. Ships from 24 species floated nearby, all of them carrying representatives who had chosen to face the tests. "You don't have to do this," Ambassador Talia said over the communication channel. "We can send someone else." "No, ma'am," Owen replied, checking his environmental suit one more time. "I said I'd go. Besides, someone needs to show the other species that humans aren't afraid." That was a lie. He was absolutely terrified, but fear had never stopped him from doing his job before. The archive sent a beam of light that wrapped around his small shuttle and pulled it gently inside. Owen felt a moment of disorientation as reality seemed to bend, and then he was somewhere else entirely. A massive chamber that looked like it had been carved from crystal and starlight. Others were already there. A Kalari merchant named Selvara, her crystalline body refracting the ambient light. A young Dravine soldier called Fun, looking as nervous as Owen felt. 3 members of a species Owen did not recognize, with too many limbs and eyes that glowed soft blue. "Welcome, candidates," said a voice that came from everywhere and nowhere. The archive itself, speaking through the chamber. "You have chosen to be evaluated. This demonstrates courage. The tests will be customized to your species and personal history. You will face scenarios designed to reveal your true nature. There is no deception here, only truth." The crystal floor beneath them became transparent. Owen looked down and saw images flowing past. Memories, not his own. Historical records from across the galaxy. Civilizations rising and falling. Wars that consumed entire star clusters. Moments of great beauty and terrible cruelty. You'll be tested individually. The archive continued. What you experience will be private. Other candidates will face their own challenges. When all tests are complete, results will be shared with your respective governments. Prepare yourselves. The chamber split apart. Each candidate found themselves in a separate space. Owen stood alone in what looked like the bridge of a coalition warship. It was not real, he knew that, but it felt real enough to make his heart race. A situation report appeared on the tactical display. Enemy vessels approaching. Civilian transport caught between two battle groups. Pirates, according to the identification. They had taken hostages from colony ship. Standard raid scenario. Owen's console lit up with options. He could engage the pirates directly, but the hostages would likely die in the crossfire. He could negotiate, but the pirates had already ignored 3 surrender demands. He could withdraw and call for reinforcements, but that would take hours, and the hostages did not have hours. Then a 4th option appeared. A Dravine battle cruiser was in range. They had superior firepower. If Owen requested their help, they could destroy the pirate ships easily. But it would mean putting Dravine soldiers in command of the situation. It would mean trusting them to actually save the hostages instead of using this as an opportunity to claim salvage rights to the civilian ship. Owen remembered the war. His father had died fighting Dravine forces. The scars from that conflict ran deep in his family. Trusting them went against every instinct. But the hostages did not care about his personal history. They just wanted to live. He opened a channel to the Dravine cruiser. Coalition Vaisselle requesting assistance. We have civilians in danger. Can you provide fire support? The response came quickly. Acknowledged, Coalition Vaisselle. Moving to intercept. We will target pirate engines only. Your people will be safe. Together, human and Dravine ships coordinated an attack that disabled the pirate vessels without harming the hostages. It was not easy. It required trust and precise timing. But it worked. The scenario faded. Owen found himself back in the crystal chamber, breathing hard. That felt so real. The fear, the doubt, the choice to trust instead of falling back on old prejudices. Other candidates were emerging from their own tests. The Kalari merchant looked shaken. The Dravine soldier seemed angry. The blue-eyed aliens appeared calm but thoughtful. Initial evaluations complete, the archive announced. Additional tests will follow. Each will build on previous choices. Your capacity for growth will be measured alongside your current ethical standing. Owen went through 6 more scenarios over the next several hours. Each one pushed him harder. Situations where the right choice meant personal sacrifice. Where helping others came at a cost. Where short-term survival conflicted with long-term cooperation. In one test, he had to choose between saving his own ship or protecting a Dravine colony from an asteroid strike. He chose the colony. His virtual crew died, but 2 million Dravine civilians lived. In another, he was offered archive technology that could make Earth the dominant military power in the galaxy. All he had to do was keep it secret from other species. He refused and shared the technology equally. The tests were exhausting, emotionally draining, but Owen understood their purpose now. The archive was not measuring whether humans were perfect. It was measuring whether they were willing to grow, to change, to put cooperation above domination. When the final test ended, Owen found himself face to face with a holographic representation of the archive. It looked like a shifting pattern of light and shadow, vaguely humanoid, but clearly not human. You have completed evaluation, it said. Your species shows potential. Individual humans vary greatly in moral capacity, but the trend toward cooperation is strong. You prioritize life over victory. This is acceptable. What about the others? Owen asked. The Dravine? The Kalari? Results vary. Some species show readiness for advancement. Others require development time. The Dravine face particular challenges. Their cultural emphasis on dominance conflicts with collaborative requirements. However, individuals like Finn demonstrate capacity for change. This suggests the species as a whole can evolve. Owen thought about Fun, the young Dravine soldier who had looked so nervous. What happens if a species fails? Failure is not permanent. The archive provides guidance for growth. Technology remains limited until ethical development matches technical capacity. This prevents self-destruction. Some species accept this wisdom. Others resist. Resistance achieves nothing but delays inevitable progress. The crystal chamber began to dissolve. Owen felt himself being transported back to his shuttle. As reality reformed around him, he heard the archive's final message. Tell your people this. Strength without wisdom leads to ruin. Wisdom without compassion leads to stagnation. Compassion without courage leads to extinction. Humanity has shown all three qualities in balance. You're approved for graduated archive access. Use this gift wisely. Owen sat in his pilot's seat, hands shaking slightly. Earth had passed. Humanity had been judged worthy. But he knew this was just the beginning. Other species were still being tested, and not all of them would receive the same message. General Kren had commanded Dravine fleets for 40 years. He had crushed rebellions and conquered systems. The idea that some ancient machine could judge him unworthy made his blood boil with rage. His assault fleet gathered at the edge of archive-controlled space. 50 capital ships, hundreds of fighters, enough firepower to reduce a planet to rubble. The plan was simple. Jump in fast, hit the archive site with everything they had, and jump out before it could respond. Destroy the structure and end this humiliating evaluation process. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. Weapons charged. Jump drives online. Kren stared at the holographic display showing the archive site. Part of him knew this was foolish. The structure had technology beyond anything the Dravine Empire possessed. But pride demanded action. His people would not bow to alien judgment. Initiate attack sequence, he ordered. The fleet jumped. Space folded around them, and they emerged in perfect formation, surrounding the archive structure. Every weapon fire at once. Plasma beam, kinetic missile, quantum torpedo. Enough destructive force to vaporize a moon. The archive did not even flinch. The attacks hit some kind of barrier and dissipated harmlessly. Then the structure responded, but not with weapons. It sent out a pulse of energy that washed over every ship in the fleet. Kren felt his consciousness pulled away from his body. Suddenly he was somewhere else. Not a physical place. A shared mental space where thoughts became visible and truth could not be hidden. His entire crew was there. Thousands of Dravine soldiers, all of them trapped in the same neural space. And they were not alone. Captain Tucker appeared, along with members of the Endeavor crew. But they were not in control. The archive itself manifested as that shifting pattern of light and shadow. You chose violence, the archive said, its voice resonating through their shared consciousness. This choice reveals core values. You will now experience perspective shift. Understanding requires empathy. Empathy requires experiencing others' viewpoints. Kren tried to resist, but the archive was too powerful. Suddenly, he was not Dravine anymore. He was human, young, frightened, standing on Earth during the First Contact War. Dravine ships filled the sky, bombing cities. He felt the terror of civilians who had done nothing wrong, but were dying because they happened to live on a planet the Dravine wanted. The perspective shifted again. Now, he was a Dravine soldier, but a different one. A private who questioned orders, who felt sick watching cities burn, who wondered if conquest was really necessary or just traditional. This soldier died during a coalition counterattack, his last thought wondering if there could have been another way, again the shift. A human captain making an impossible choice during the war. Surrender and let his crew live, or fight and probably doom them all. He chose to fight because retreat meant the Dravine would take the civilian station behind him. The captain died, but the civilians escaped. His sacrifice meant something. Kren experienced a dozen lives. 100 moments of choice. People on both sides of the war facing situations where violence was not the only option, but choosing it anyway because they thought it was necessary. Or choosing peace and being called weak. Or choosing courage and being called foolish. The archive showed him humanity's perspective during First Contact. They had been afraid. Alone in the galaxy. When the Dravine Empire arrived, humans tried diplomacy first. offered trade, cultural exchange, mutual cooperation. The Dravine response had been to demand submission and take what they wanted when humans refused. This is propaganda, Kren managed to think, though even he could feel the words were hollow. This is recorded history, the archive replied. Unedited, unbiased. You see events as they occurred. Not as your empire taught you they occurred. More memories flooded through him. The battle of the contested reaches where the Endeavor disappeared. Kren had been there. He remembered it as a glorious victory. The archive showed him what really happened. Human ship damaged and desperate, still fighting to protect civilian evacuations. Dravine command ship chasing them through unstable space, ignoring warnings about the collapsing wormhole because pride demanded the kill. Both ships had paid the price. But only the humans had survived because they adapted, learned, grew. The Dravine vessel had maintained rigid doctrine even as reality fell apart around them. You failed this test 70 years ago, the archive said. Your species chose domination over cooperation, conquest over understanding. The pattern persists. General Kren, you attack what you fear. You destroy what you cannot control. This is why your access to advanced technology remains limited. Kren felt something break inside him. Not his mind, his certainty. For 40 years, he had believed in Dravine superiority, that their way was the only way, that strength meant crushing anyone who opposed them. But experiencing the war from human perspectives, feeling their fear and courage and desperate hope for peace, made him question everything. What do you want from us? He thought, directing the question at the archive. Evolution, not physical, ethical. Your species has capacity for compassion. Individual Dravine throughout history have chosen cooperation over conflict. But your culture suppresses these impulses, rewards violence, punishes mercy. This creates civilization doomed to stagnation or self-destruction. The shared consciousness space began showing different scenarios, possible futures. In one, the Dravine maintained their current path. Wars with other species, resource depletion, eventually isolation and decline. In another, they embraced change, reformed their culture, joined the galactic community as partners instead of conquerors. This future showed prosperity and growth. The choice is yours, the archive said. Change and advance, or remain as you are and stagnate. The Harvest Protocol does not force evolution. It simply makes consequences clear. Kren felt his consciousness returning to his body. Around him, his crew members were waking up too. All of them had experienced the same shared vision. Thousands of Dravine soldiers, all facing the same impossible truth. Their culture was broken. Their empire was built on flawed foundations. Everything they'd been taught was wrong. Some of his soldiers looked angry. Others appeared confused. A few were crying, overwhelmed by the weight of revelation. Kren understood all those reactions because he felt them himself. His tactical officer looked at him with wide eyes. General, what are your orders? Kren stared at the archive structure, still hanging peacefully in space despite their attack. It could have destroyed his fleet effortlessly. Instead, it had shown them the truth and let them choose what to do with that knowledge. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. Stand down all weapons. Return to Dravine space. We have much to discuss with the High Council. Sir, we can't just retreat, someone protested. What about our mission? Our mission was based on fear and pride, Kren said quietly. I have seen the error of our ways. If the Dravine Empire is to survive, we must change. That change starts now. He knew this decision would cost him his position, possibly his life. The High Council did not accept failure or defeat, but he also knew it was the right choice. The archive had shown him that much. 1 year after the Harvest Protocol began, the galaxy looked different. Not physically. The same stars hung in the same places. But everything else had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Captain Ryan Tucker walked through the rebuilt Coalition Hall, watching representatives from 200 species work together on projects that would have been impossible before the archive evaluation. Dravine engineers collaborated with human scientists. Kalari merchants shared resources with former competitors. Species that had barely spoken to each other now exchanged cultural ambassadors and research data. "You look tired," Ambassador Talia said, falling into step beside him. She had aged another year, gray hair now fully white, but her eyes held a brightness that had not been there before. "When was the last time you slept?" "About 30 hours ago," Tucker admitted. "We've been training new archive guardians. 60 species passed the evaluation. Each one needs crew members who understand how to interface with archive technology safely. It's a lot of work." They stopped at a viewing window that overlooked the main assembly floor. Below, a Dravine named Fun was giving a presentation about ethical framework development. The same young soldier who had been evaluated alongside Owen Briggs. He had become one of the most vocal advocates for cultural reform in the Dravine Collective, the new government that had replaced the old empire. "General Kren's revolution actually worked," Talia said, sounding amazed. "I thought the High Council would execute him for treason." "They tried," Tucker said, "but 3,000 ship captains stood with him. Said they had experienced the same revelation and refused to follow the old ways anymore." The council had a choice: adapt or lose the entire military. They chose to adapt. It had not been smooth. The Dravine Collective was still figuring out how to function without conquest as their primary goal. But they were trying, and that was what mattered. The archive had given them the roadmap. Actually following it was up to them. Tucker's communication device chirped. Chief Beth's voice came through, sounding excited. "Captain, you need to get back to the Endeavor. The archive just sent us new coordinates. There's another structure, bigger than the others, and it's sending out an invitation." "On my way," Tucker said. Already heading for the docking bay, the Endeavor had changed too. Its crew had expanded to include members from 30 different species. What had started as a purely human vessel was now a symbol of cooperation, a mobile archive embassy traveling between systems to help new species integrate archive technology. Lieutenant Yuki met him at the airlock, her expression serious. "The coordinates put the structure in deep intergalactic space. It's going to take us 3 weeks to get there even with quantum fold drives. Then we better get started," Tucker said. "Who else is coming?" "The Dravine Collective is sending General Kren with a science team. Earth is sending Professor Grant and Dr. Lang. Kalari Consortium wants to send observers. Looks like we're going to have quite a crowd." The journey gave Tucker time to reflect on everything that had happened. 70 years ago, by everyone else's timeline, he had been a warship captain pursuing an enemy through collapsing space. Now he was something different. A teacher, a bridge between ancient knowledge and younger species, trying to prove themselves worthy of that knowledge. The Endeavor was not alone when they arrived at the coordinates. 50 ships from 24 species had made the trip, all curious about what the archive wanted to show them. The structure that waited for them was enormous. 10 times the size of the archive sites that had appeared during the Harvest Protocol. It hung in the void between galaxies, powered by energy sources Tucker could not identify even with all his archive knowledge. "That's not just a storage facility," Professor Grant said, staring at the sensor readings. "That's a threshold, a doorway." The archive spoke, its voice transmitted to every ship simultaneously. "Congratulations to all species who have passed evaluation. You have demonstrated ethical capacity matching technical ambition. You are ready for the next phase of development." Images appeared on every view screen. Other galaxies, billions of star systems, most unexplored, and scattered among them, more archive structures, ancient and waiting. The architects seeded the universe with knowledge. The archive continued. Your galaxy was one testing ground among thousands. Other species and other galaxies face their own evaluations. Some have passed. Others still struggle. You are invited to join the greater galactic community, to meet civilizations older and younger, to share what you have learned. Tucker felt his breath catch. They had thought the coalition was the entire scope of galactic civilization. But this revealed something far larger. Humanity and their coalition neighbors were just one small corner of a universe filled with intelligent life. "There is danger," the archive warned. "Not all species pass evaluation. Some choose violence over cooperation. These civilizations are quarantined within their own regions of space, prevented from spreading their destructive tendencies. Others face existential threats: rogue AI, ecological collapse, cosmic disasters. The greater community assists where possible, but resources are finite. Your participation means accepting responsibility for others beyond your own species. General Kren's voice came over the communication channel. What if we refuse? What if we choose to stay in our own galaxy? That choice is honored, the archive replied. You may remain at your current development level, but understand that growth requires risk. Isolation brings safety, but prevents advancement. The universe is vast. Your corner of it is safe because the architects made it so. Venturing beyond means facing challenges without their direct protection. Tucker looked around the Endeavor's bridge. His crew, human and alien, all watching him for guidance. He thought about the choice they faced. Safety versus growth. Known versus unknown. Stay in their comfortable corner of the universe or venture out to meet whatever waited beyond. Put to a vote, he said. Everyone who wants to go forward, say so. Everyone who wants to stay, same thing. This isn't my decision alone. The vote was not even close. 80% wanted to continue forward. Humans, Dravine, Kalari, and dozens of other species all choosing growth over comfort. Tucker smiled and opened a channel to the archive. We accept your invitation. Show us what's next. The massive structure began to open, revealing a pathway that bent space and time, a corridor between galaxies that would have taken millions of years to cross by conventional means. The Endeavor moved forward, leading a fleet of ships into the unknown. Behind them, the Coalition would continue developing, preparing for the day when they too could make this journey. But for now, the pioneers went ahead, representing everyone who had passed the archive's tests. Tucker stood on the bridge, watching stars stream past as they entered the pathway. Somewhere out there, other species waited. Some would be allies. Others might be threats. But humanity and their coalition friends would face them together, armed with archive knowledge and the hard-won wisdom of cooperation. They had been judged worthy. Now, they would prove it.